Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Megan. Today I'm going to be sharing why I started to wear an oxygen monitor while I was sleeping. I predominantly wore it when I was being diagnosed with craniocervical instability for several months. So I've had insomnia or sleep difficulties for a very long time, and I didn't know why for a while. But when I began to be diagnosed with CCI, I realized that it was likely the instability in my neck was either related or causing the sleep problems. So to give you guys some context, I'm going to share what commonly happened to me in an average night before I was able to regulate my sleep. First of all, I would wake up numerous times, 8 to 10 times on average, maybe even more in a common night, and it was very difficult to fall back asleep. My quality of sleep was poor at best. Sometimes what would happen is I would wake up and I just couldn't move my body. Other times I would wake up and my whole body would convulse a couple of times, or I would have intense, painful muscle spasms in various limbs. Other times my limbs would just be in immense pain and I couldn't move them. Often when this would happen, I would wake up with intense brain fog and a lack of neurological capabilities, which was consistent with my symptoms throughout the day. And when this would happen, I knew something was not right and something was wrong, but I didn't know exactly what. Additionally, in bad flares of my symptoms throughout the day, it was extremely hard for me to breathe. My breathing would become erratic, and there would be an unusual amount of pressure in my throat, as well as difficulty swallowing. My throat felt smaller, and it was harder to fit things down my throat when I was eating, and I didn't know why. But okay, as well, the best way for me to describe the brain fog, I've said this before, but it's basically a near catatonic state where it's difficult to respond, to think, to talk, to do any basic neurological things of that nature. And that would happen most of the time when I was waking up in the middle of the night. So I'm not going to try to attempt to explain the scientific intricacies of why this was happening to me while I was sleeping. I've said this before, I'm not a doctor, so I will link an article of someone's thorough explanation of scientifically why this happens to some people with instability. If you're in this community and have CCI, you've probably heard of her. Her name is Jennifer Brea. In the article, she's just discussing her story and what happened to her. And I'm going to read an excerpt of what she said. It was helpful for me in figuring out likely why I was having difficulty breathing. And this is what she says on her diagnostic journey. She said, "My neurosurgeon later explained, it seems like when you stop breathing, your CO2 levels rise, causing your blood vessels to vasodilate. Excess blood then rushes to your head and the pressure rises with it. As both CO2 and pressure reaching some breaking point, you start breathing again. As CO2 falls, your vessels constrict, the blood volume in your head falls, your intracranial pressure falls, and then you stop breathing again." She goes on to call this central hypoventilation syndrome and says it is a form of dysautonomia that can cause respiratory arrest and death during sleep. It is rare and usually congenital, but can also result from trauma. It is generally due to brainstem dysfunction. So if you have instability, that could be why you have insomnia and are having difficulty breathing, or it could be related. And I don't say this to instill fear in anyone. I just know that for me, I had good reason to suspect that this is why I was having a hard time breathing. and it was helpful for me to know in moving forward. So as I was going through this, I was just started to become really concerned that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. And I wasn't anxious by any means, but it was more of just me realizing that this scary possibility was a very likely reality. So I started to wear an oxygen monitor, like I mentioned before, and the monitor showed that my O2 levels were dropping to alarming levels multiple times a night, and my heart rate was all over the place, and so it showed that something was going on with my oxygen levels and that I wasn't getting enough. So during this process, like I said, I got the O2 monitor. I put it to a setting where it would buzz me awake in the middle of the night if I dropped to a certain oxygen saturation. And just even wearing it gave me a lot of peace of mind, because when this did happen, it would buzz me awake. When I finally did have my cervical collar, I could put on the cervical collar, or I could receive traction. I realized that when I did receive traction and put on my collar, my breathing problems went away and I felt fine. And so that just further confirms that my insomnia was caused likely by my instability. So this went on for a long time and was a concern for me for a while, partially because I had the concern before I had the collar. So I didn't have anything to protect myself in the night. When I finally did get a collar, it was an Aspen multi-post, and that collar did not work best for me for a long time. I wasn't able to sleep with it, and I needed sleep to survive. So I often would not wear the collar to bed. Finally, with working things out, I found this collar, and when I did find this collar, I was comfortable sleeping in it, and I was able to finally sleep all the way through the night and didn't have insomnia anymore. So if you're having trouble sleeping in your collar, I'd say maybe it's because you need a different one, or you just need to adjust some things about your positioning. That gave me just a lot of peace of mind and relief once I was able to figure that out. My doctor at this time, she specializes in craniocervical instability. She told me that I could start sleeping with an oxygen mask. I did not, because I was able to regulate my sleep before I would need to do that, but some people will do that, just so you know, if you want to consider that. Also, the more I got traction, the more I was wearing my collar during the day, the more relief I was getting across the board from my POTS and my instability, the better my sleep became. So my suggestion would be, if you are worried that you might just not wake up in the morning because you'll stop breathing, try to find a collar that you can sleep in. And if you can't sleep in it, maybe put your collar right next to you in bed. Wear the oxygen monitor, and when it buzzes, try to finagle yourself into the collar. If you have a traction unit, have it nearby your bed. Or I had a friend who for a really long time slept in my bed with me or in the room next door and would give me traction when I needed, but I know not everyone can do that. And so I hope this doesn't scare you. I hope it just provides some potential options if you are worried about this already, because I was, and it was scary. But some hope. Once I figured out traction in my collar, my breathing always went back to normal, and I now sleep all the way through the night. I haven't struggled for a long time, which has been a significant relief. All right, guys, talk to you later.